and a bit of sadness in the mix. "Are you not ready yet?" Richard asked Bella for the umpteenth time. "Just a few more minutes," she said yet again. They were getting ready for the New Year's Eve ball. If there was one thing his father was good at, it would be throwing parties. He threw parties for any reason, and it all sickened Richard. For the first time, Richard was actually willing to attend a party that his father was throwing. His willingness was owned by the fact that Bella was going to be by his side, and also by the fact that he was sporting a new look. He was still mulling in his thoughts when the door to the closet finally opened and Bella walked out. Finally. She looked beautiful, magnificent, ethereal, and yet all of those words could not do her justice. She looked like she just stepped out of whatever world that brought out angels. From whatever galaxy perfection was made. Like she basically fell out of the sky, and for some absurd reason, she chose to be with him. "Words cannot express how beautiful you look," he said, and she blushed deep red, which was pretty hard for her skin, but she did it anyway. "You have such a sweet tongue on you. I would have never guessed you could be so smooth," she said, and Richard shook his head. He could not believe she thought he was lying, that she did not know how beautiful she looked or even how wonderful she was. Richard was just speaking the plain truth, and it was not just her face. It was not just her dress that was beautiful. Though the cream material almost blended with the color of her skin, and the stretchy, like material, seemed like it was caressing her curves, like it was seducing her, and her shiny nude heels were just begging him to fuck her. How those were just her outward appearance, and had nothing to do with why she was so beautiful. It was her heart, how open it was. It was her smile, how unhidden it was. "It's not a lie, Bella. You look magnificent. You are magnificent." They arrived at the party in a limo, and they were basically the talk of the show. All Richard's life, he had been in the background, never open, always hidden. But on that day, all of the attention had no other choice but to come to him. At first, he was awestruck and refused to move, and then compliments he had never gotten before began to come his way. Girls that he had thought were out of his league began to flirt with him, but he was not interested in them. He held Bella close, even when she wanted to leave, and did not let her go. "Richard, is that you?" "Richard, you look really good." "Oh my gosh, I did not know you were hiding such a body under your suits." Those were the comments that filled his ears when he got to the party. Everyone wanted to see him, they wanted to touch him, they wanted to know him. At first, he had liked the attention as it was new, but it all started to get to him. The people, the noise, and all of that. He certainly did not like it. Both Bella and him had managed to avoid his father for a while, and they were drinking a glass of wine as they sat on their table. Richard groaned as he saw the vision of his father approaching. He wondered what the older man would say about his new looks. "How is my favorite couple doing?" his father asked as he came to him. Richard could see a flicker of surprise in his gaze, but his father hid it quickly enough. The old man did not even say anything about his looks. "We are fine, Dad," he said, secretly thanking his father for being so interested in Bella. If not so, then he would not have her, and he would have just wasted his chance with her. "You guys should go into the dance floor," his father suggested, basically pushing both Richard and Bella to the dance floor, leaving them without much of a choice. They both stood up, and Richard led Bella to the dance floor. It was a soft song that was playing. Surprisingly, Richard was actually a pretty good dancer, whereas Bella was terrible. She was a bit clumsy and stepped on his shoes at least twice, muttering a sorry each time it happened. He guided her as they danced to the slow dance, held her as they twirled, moved with her from left to right, and made sure that she did not fall. She smiled throughout the dance, and it seemed like she was having the time of her life. and by the light ache in his cheeks, Richard knew that he was smiling too. He was also having the time of his life. Before they knew it, they had danced for much longer than they had bargained for her, but they absolutely enjoyed themselves. When the new year began, Richard held Bella close and kissed her like it was the last time he would ever see her again. He kissed her till the clock struck and everyone shouted Happy New Year. As people screamed and were shouting Happy New Year, it seemed like they were in their very own world, a world that was different from the one everyone else was. They held each other tight during the celebration, as they knew that it might be their last day together. They slipped out of the party on foot. Bella wore a thick coat over her dress, and they took a walk, not saying anything, just walking. It was as though they were having a silent conversation, that they did not need words to communicate. Richard knew that it was Bella's way of saying goodbye, but the truth was that he did not want it to end. They walked and walked, holding each other's hands, feeling the warmth over another on theirs. They walked until they came across a park, one that was still busy. Given it was the new year, people were still out celebrating. They ended up seating on a park bench and watching the leaves snowfall from a leafless tree, watching the calm waters with no disturbance. That tree looks so sad, Bella said out of the blue, breaking their minute-long silence, and Richard turned to look at her, wondering what she meant. What do you mean? He asked. Well, it has lost all of its leaves, and it is oh so alone, without all of its fruits, just because of the snow. Richard did not understand what she said, but he had a feeling that it was way more than the tree. She was talking about something entirely different. He was about to ask her what it was, when her phone vibrated on the chair for the umpteenth time, making a buzz sound with the chair. You should pick that, he said to her, and she just shrugged. It's probably someone that wants to wish me a happy new year, and I do not want to spoil our moment. It is actually an emergency, but you will not know until you actually pick up the call. At least check the caller ID, he said, and she sighed, picked up the phone and checked the ID. At the sight of the phone, her expression immediately morphed into a frown, and she picked up the call. Hello, she said into the phone, and her demeanor continued to worsen. It was clear to Richard that the caller could only be delivering bad news. He scooted close to her and put his arm around her shoulders, holding her close even though she shook from the call. She did not push him away, and for that he was grateful. We have to get to the hospital, she said to him the moment the call was over. He did not waste any time in bringing out his own phone and calling the driver, whom he had told to follow them. Bella was shaking in his arms, and she did not want to wait for the car, but Richard held her close and tight. In no time the driver was there, and they drove to the Hill Memorial Hospital. The drive consisted by Bella shaking and muttering Mirabelle. It took a while for Richard to realize that Bella's sister was hurt. He tried his best to calm her, but immediately they got into the hospital. She dashed barefoot out of the car as she pulled her heels on the way. Richard sighed and followed her direction as fast as he could. The smell of the hospital hit him hard. He had always hated the smell of hospitals. To him they reminded him of death, his mother's death. Before his mother moved to home treatment, she was constantly in the hospital. She would go through chemotherapy and all her hair would fall out. Her skin would be so blotchy and lifeless. Seeing his mother like that had been accompanied with the hospital, and he had avoided hospitals all his life. He barely got injured, and so it was good for him, but he was finally in the hospital after so many years. I am here for Mirabelle Anderson, he said to the receptionist, thankful for his good memory. Are you family? The lady said, but did not continue clicking on her computer like he was used to, but she was staring at him with a bit of lust in her eyes. He had the sudden urge to look behind him, But then he remembered the makeover he was not sure he would ever get used to. I am her sister's husband, the lady that just dashed in," he said, claiming the most believable lie he could think of. The woman looked disappointed by the notion that he was married, but she still said, "The third room by your left." With those directions, Richard started walking in the busy hospital. At midnight on New Year's Day, the place was still filled with people. Richard wondered if there was a day the hospital was ever empty. He walked until he saw Bella standing by the door, looking oh so defeated, with tears in her eyes. Immediately she saw him. She rushed into his arms and he held her tight as she cried, her tears flowing on his shirt, wetting it. "Is you? So, since Christmas is about sharing gifts and all, and we are spending Christmas together, what do you want for Christmas?" she asked when they had finally finished their food and their bellies were full. "I think I have already gotten my own Christmas present," Richard said, and Bella looked at him weirdly. They had been together since Christmas Eve, and she was pretty sure that Santa did not sneak into the house in the middle of the night and plant a gift for Richard. "I am serious, Rick. I actually want to get you a gift, and you are rejecting it." The nickname had just rolled off her tongue, without her even thinking of it. "I am also serious. I have already gotten my gift." His conviction made Bella curious, which was quite ironic since curiosity killed the cat that she sincerely hoped was not her. "So, tell me, what did you want for Christmas that you already have?" she asked, unable to hold herself. "Well, I wanted a second chance, and it is looking at me straight in the eye," he said. It took Bella some time to actually get what he said, but when she finally got the gist, she was shocked and at the same time she was happy. She was happy because he took her more than just a sex partner, but she was shocked because she did not expect him to take her that highly. "Are you serious?" she asked, and Richard simply nodded. Maybe she found luck after all. Maybe she could also find love. "Oh my God, I think I am going to fall," Bella said excitedly, with amusement and a bit of fear lacing her words. He was teaching her how to ice skate, and she seemed terrible at it. She had absolutely no body coordination, and if he was not holding her so tightly, she would have probably landed on the ice. But all of that did not seem to matter to her. She was having the time of her life, smiling and screaming out her guts. "You will be fine," he assured again as he settled his hands on her hip, guiding her as they glided on the ice. She was basically leaning all of her weight on him. She felt tense and had not yet loosened up. "I see that little girl over there," he said, pointing to a child that was dancing on the ice with a grace that even he did not possess, all in a bid to get her to loosen her up. "I can see her." Richard could basically hear the pout in her voice. She clearly did not like being compared to the child, but he did it anyway. "If that kid can do it, then so can you," he said, and Bella looked at him with a challenge shining through her eyes. She immediately shrugged of him, and that day he learned how competitive she was. At first all of her attempts were failed, but after a while, she became an expert. Well, as much of an expert that she could be for someone with no coordination whatsoever. "You did pretty well," he complimented when they got back to their room, and Bella flushed. They spent the rest of their week doing various things. On Boxing Day, they went shopping, and Bella insisted that she change his wardrobe. He wore the clothes he did because he felt comfortable in them. He wore them not to bring attention to himself. It was a very hard achievement to allow someone to shop for him, but somehow in the less than 24 hours that he met Bella, he let her choose his clothes. "Come on, please, Richard. I dress people up for a living. Just let me take you shopping," she had pleaded with her huge doe eyes and all. At first he was offended that she did not like his dress sense. But after a whole lot of sweet talking on her side, he finally agreed, and she dragged him to each and every shop there was. She seemed so in her element, choosing a style that went with his light skin color and making sure that they all fit to his skin. He argued countless times that he had no intentions on conforming to the society's opinion on how to dress and how not to, but she managed to let him know that it was not for the society, but that he was doing it for himself. He truly did not get the logic, as he already felt comfortable in his own clothing, but refused to argue with her. He literally felt like a doll, as he was pruned and pampered, had a haircut, and he was measured more times than he could count. He finally knew what brides went through on their wedding day, or even the entire week leading to the wedding. By the time they were done with the entire makeover, Richard felt like a totally different man. His hair, that was usually a bit long and slightly curly, was cut at his neck, the sort of hairstyle that CEOs and billionaires cut. His eyebrows were plucked, showing his face structure. He was put into a navy blue suit and a red tie, coupled with a pair of shiny shoes and a Rolex wristwatch on his wrist. Who would have thought you were hiding such a wonderful-looking body under that suit? Bella complimented, and the itchy suit suddenly felt very comfortable. I try my best, he joked. They went on to shop for more casual wear and everything that had to do with clothing, from watches to shoes to socks to ties and down to shampoo, cologne and body wash. Bella was determined to change his entire wardrobe. On the bright side, she let him pay for it. She did not hesitate to shop for herself, as she bought some dresses for the New Year's Eve dinner they were to attend, and also a pair of shiny heels that looked marvelous on her. He had never shopped with a woman, and so he felt slightly awkward when she asked him for his opinion on her lingerie, basically modeling each one for him. They ended up making out in the changing room, hoping that the staff did not suddenly walk in on them. For Christmas, he bought her a bag that she had been staring at longingly. She loved it, but she claimed she loved his company more. They learned more and more about each other. He learned that she wanted a dog, but never had the time to do. She told him about how she would love to retire and take wildlife pictures from around the world. He told her how he felt like he was grounded, but yet drifting, about how he wanted stability, a simple job, a house, maybe a few kids. She told him about her little sister, Mirabelle, and how she was the family's brainiac, how she was already in medical school, and how she had always felt inferior to her. How her parents had been the first people to push her down when she said she wanted to be a model, how they had wanted to push her in their own professional field. How when she had met Ian, he had been a blend between her and her parents. He was settled with a good job and walked in an actual company, but he did also know how to have fun, how to take her out to parties, and how he was not a bore. He told her about his mother and how he had always known that she was sick, how he would sit by her bedside and watch her for hours, how he watched and watched as she withered and withered away. He shed a few tears as he told her about his mother, and she held him tight. She told him about her exciting childhood, how even though her parents disapproved of almost everything she did, how she was still happy, how she would play in the sun, laughing and running while her sister would be sitting down, her nose stuck in a book. For the most part of her childhood, she had hated her sister. She had been jealous of her, but they had mended their disputes, although they were not still best of friends. He told her how lonely being an only child was, and for that reason he wanted to have lots of children. They told each other their likes and dislikes, their fears and loves. They spent every minute and every waking hour with each other, and before they knew it, 5 days were gone. They were getting closer and closer to the new year, and for the first time in a long time, Richard did not want a year to end. Don't you think that is too much, Flower Bella? Richard asked Bella as she downed a whole lot of flour into the batter she was mixing. Bella had told Richard that she loved to bake, and he was lovesick enough to believe her. He wanted to surprise her, and so he spoke with the hotel staff, and they got their very own kitchen for a whole day, and so Bella was trying to bake some gingerbread cookies. Rickhead did not know anything about baking, but he was pretty sure Bella was going about it the wrong way. "I was thinking it was enough," she said, and Richard raised an eyebrow at her. They had been in the kitchen for a total of 20 minutes, but the place was already a mess. There was flour everywhere, from the counter to ground to the cooker. There was eggshells and butter all over, and Richard was beginning to think that she lied to him, and that she was bad at baking, like really bad. "Bella, do you actually know how to bake?" he asked, and Bella had the good grace to look offended. "Of course. I am pretty sure that the mixer is not on," he said, referring to the pink hand mixer that she was turning manually inside the bowl. "I knew that. I am just testing it. That's right. I just want it to be perfect," she said, and turned on the switch on the mixer, which was on the highest, and sent flour flying everywhere, some even landing on Richard's face. "Put it off, Richard, put it off," she chanted, clearly scared of the machine. He stepped beside her and flipped the switch on the wall, sending the spiraling machine to a stop. "I totally knew that would happen," she said with a dramatic sweep of her flour-filled hand on her black hair. Richard could not help it. The laughter that he had been holding bubbled up his throat and out of his mouth. The laughter was so strong that he had to bend at his stomach and hit the counter with his hand. When he was finally done, he looked up to see Bella's face scrunched up in a frown. "You have got a little something," he said, pointing at her hair, and Bella's face changed from anger to pure horror. "My hair!" she cried out, and Richard continued laughing. "I give up," she said in a dramatic manner. "I swear, Rick, I was an excellent baker when I was kid. I have no idea where all of my talent went to," she said again, and Richard was struggling not to laugh. "It's okay, Bella, we can totally finish it. Who knows? It might get better in the oven." Bella's eyes lit at the idea of continuing and dusted her hands, turning back to her disastrous baking spree. "Let's go," she said with so much enthusiasm. More than a few minutes later, the hotel's kitchen was black with smoke. It turned out that along with forgetting how to mix batter, Bella had forgotten how to operate an oven. A fire extinguisher was brought to stop the fire, and Bella's spirit was crushed. Richard could not laugh as he began to see how much it meant to her. "You know, maybe some other time, we could for a couple's baking class," he said, just wanting her chirpy self back, not actually thinking through his sentence before bringing it out. "Maybe your father will feel we are dating again, and we will have to convince him," she said, and he was immediately brought back to reality. They were only together because of a farce that was not even all that necessary. During their stay at the hotel, Richard had spotted none of his father's guards, but he did not tell Bella any of that. He wanted to enjoy the time he had with her. "Who knows, maybe we can go for real," he said, unable to spell it out that he was caring about her much more than he expected. But he did not. Bella just shrugged, and Richard took it as a good sign. "We should go out for dinner, actually eat outside of our room," Richard said out of the blue, hoping that the dinner would lighten Bella up. They had been ordering room service and eating inside of their room for 5 days, and Richard wanted to take her out, to show her off. Yes, she said, jumping up from the chair, her eyes shining in wonder. "I am going to dress. I have been looking for a reason to dress up," she said as she went into the room, selecting one of the dresses she bought, a bright silver number, one that shouted, "Look at me, I am shiny," and went into the bathroom, singing along the way. He smiled as he was finally able to get her to smile. The restaurant, like many others, was decorated for the new year. The weather was chilly, but many were out. They talked as they ate their pasta and joked as they drank their wine. They even sang a little as they ate their dessert. They had made many new friends at the resort, and many of them were out for dinner, and so they told one of the couple they had made friends with to take them a picture. They were both half drunk. They both knew that their time together was coming to an end, and they were both cowards, as they were too scared to tell each other how they felt. Back in the hotel room, they touched each other like it was the last time, kissed each other like it was goodbye. Even the sex was different, like it was on another level. It was making love and so much more. They slept in each other's arms, knowing that the next day was New Year's Eve, and that one day after, it was officially over. Mirabelle, please be fine. Mirabelle, please be fine. Isabella chanted over and over in her mind. When the hospital had called her and said her sister had been involved in an accident, she had no idea what to say. They claimed she had been driving drunk, but Mirabelle was way too sensible to do something as reckless as that. She was a medical student, for God's sake. Mirabelle was sensible, and that was not her kind of thing to do. Isabella almost did not believe it. She had been shaking for the entire ride to the hospital, and she had no idea what she would do if something terrible happened to her sister. Her parents were out of the country, and she had been the only person to call. Isabella badly wanted her sister to be fine. She had no idea what she would do if something bad happened to her. They only had each other after all. She had dashed into the hospital to search for reassurance that her sister would be fine. But she had gotten to the room and seen his sister bandaged up beyond recognition, hooked to a whole lot of machines and unconscious. She had cried at how pitiful her sister looked, and she had cried for her to be well. All hope seemed to seep from her body at the sight. That couldn't be her sister lying almost lifeless. It should not be her sister at all. She had asked God to forgive her if she had ever done any wrong, and that he should save her sister. She had called her parents and cried into the phone. They might have been thousands of miles apart, but that was the closest that they had been in years. Grief seemed to draw people closer, it seemed. Isabella shook as she cried into the phone. Her sister just had to be fine. When she saw Richard, he was like her light in the darkness of life. She knew that she did not deserve him, all of that pure goodness. She was not clean after all. But she rushed into his hug, and she cried in his arms. She cried enough to make sure that it was of her chest. She felt safe as he held her, while she was crying. He was her hope in that case of despair. She held on to him like she never had. They both sat and waited for the doctor, with Richard holding her throughout, not sleeping a wink. He held her till morning, and the doctor finally came with good news that she would be awake, but that she might not be able to walk again, that her sister with so many big dreams would not be able to use her legs anymore. Isabella did not know what to do with that information. She had no idea how to handle that. Richard had been the one by her side when she saw her sister awake. He was the one that made her not to blurt what the doctor had said suddenly. "You look pretty good, sis," her sister had said, trying to be all casual during that period, and Isabella had looked at her like she'd grown two heads. Her sister had laughed at her expression, but even her laugh did not sound the same. It sounded weak and down. By that morning her parents had already boarded a plane, and they were headed back to New York. By noon her parents were at the hospital, and Richard was still there with her. Out of circumstance, he had met the parents. "Mom, Dad, this is my boyfriend Richard." "Rick, my mom and dad," she had said, giving him the easiest title that had come to mind. Being academics themselves, her parents had loved Richard. And even in spite of Mirabelle being hurt in the other room, her mother was already making wedding plans. "Have you told him?" her mother had asked as she drew her to the corner, where no one would hear her. "What?" she asked, even though she knew what her mother was pointing at, but she was not ready to accept it. "You know what I mean, so stop acting coy." "No, I have not told him," she admitted. "Well, should tell and fast. Do not let him find out by himself, and please, do not drag it out. Just tell him. If he can't love you with that, then he does not deserve you," her mother said, giving her the most advice that she had in her entire life. "Okay," she said, hoping to hell that it would be easy. "You guys should go and freshen up and have some sleep. Your father and I are here." The drive back to their hotel was quiet and low, and Isabella had no words to say. She was half confused, but she knew that she had to tell him. "What is wrong, Bella?" Richard asked as they got into their room, putting his arms around her. She shrugged out of his hold, as she was not sure that she would not beg him to stay with her if he was holding her. Richard looked hurt by her actions, but she convinced herself that it was for the greater good. "I told you that Ian and I broke up, but I have never told you why," she said. "I don't care how your ex broke up with you, Bella. Those reasons do not matter to me. His loss my gain." At Rick's words, she smiled, and she hoped that he would not eat his words when he found out why. "Well, it is important, and I am going to tell you," she began, cringing a little as she remembered how much Richard loved children, how he wanted many of his own, since he was lonely as an only child. Ian broke up with me because he found out that I cannot have children." The look of shock that appeared on Richard's face gave her a very bad feeling. Wedding bells. Isabella felt something undeniably wet on her face. She settled back, her eyes still covered with the days of sleep, and made herself comfortable on the bed. As she was going back to the land of sleep, the wet substance rubbed her face again. This time it was accompanied by something soft. "Skippy, will you stop?" she exclaimed, holding her little dog and carrying her from her face, where she seemed to content licking. Yes, Isabella had finally got the dog that she wanted. Skippy was a small white poodle that did not seem to understand that his fur was actually white, as he kept on rolling about in anything dirty and jumping, yipping, basically happily playing everywhere. Bella absolutely loved him. "Merry Christmas, sis!" her sister shouted from outside her door, and Isabella smiled wistfully. It had been one whole year since the last Christmas, which was the most eventful one of her life, and so much had occurred after then. "Merry Christmas, Mirabelle," Isabella said as she stood up from her bed, stretching with Skippy in her hands. "And Merry Christmas, little sunshine," she said, kissing her sister's engorged belly. Her sister's case had been nothing short of a miracle, as even though the doctors said she might never walk again, she still walked, but with a slight limp. That Christmas meant a whole lot to her, and it was something that she would never forget. "Come on, Isabella, let's go get dressed," Mirabelle said, urging her to move. "I am tired, Mirabelle. It is Christmas morning. We have to open gifts or something, not go to some party," she said, whining. She had absolutely no strength in her, at least not enough strength to start dressing up so early in the morning. "Is it because you are missing your husband?" Mirabelle teased, and Isabella glared at her. "And there is no one here to call you Bella," her annoying sister continued. Her and Richard had gotten married approximately 1 month after Christmas, on their 1-month anniversary of meeting. It was the epitome of a whirlwind wedding, and a whole lot of people disapproved. Surprisingly, her parents were not part of those people. Both her mother and her father supported them. The only problem was Rick's father, who did not seem to believe that she would want to get married to Richard without asking for anything in return. Anyways, they got married and he got used to the idea. when she had told Rick about the fact that she could not have children. She expected that he would run, that he would say some half-hearted things, give some reasons why he could not be with her, but he did nothing of the sort. That day, he just brought her into his arms and hugged her tight, and he did not leave. He told her not to worry about it, and he told her to be calm. He never used the fact that she could not have children against her, and for the very first time, he told her that he loved her. If he had said it a few days before, she might have not believed him. But with him knowing her, all her flaws, everything that was not working with her, he still loved her, and she was glad. Isabella smiled as she remembered his declaration of love. "I know this might seem sudden, but I think I might love you." She had frowned at how uncertain he sounded, and he seemed to understand. No, I don't think. I know that I love you. I am so sure of it. I was living in denial, as I thought that it was too early, but I have realized that love has nothing to do with time or age or place. That love is not quantifiable. Everyone has their own experience with love. It takes some people years to fall in love, and like me, it takes some people just a day. I do not have a reason for loving you. I do not have an actual reason. Because if that reason goes away, I might not love you anymore. But I just love you, with no doubts, with no strings attached. I just love you. By the time he was done, tears were streaming down her face, as she could not help them. "I love you so much, to my love for you is also unquantifiable," she said, unable to give some extensive speech, but she loved him nevertheless. "I see, you are daydreaming about your husband again," Mirabelle said, bringing her out of her thoughts. "Well, he is my husband. I have a right to daydream about him. I just wish he was around for Christmas," she said, whining a bit. Yeah, go on, let's get dressed," her sister said again, and basically pushed her into the bathroom to have her bath. When she was done taking her bath, Bella went on to dress up. The house that her and Rick had bought in New York was beautiful, a bit of a blend between both their opposite characters, a bit clinical and a bit stylish. He was nice enough to let her decorate the room. She had chosen an egg cream color for the walls, not wanting a color that would overwhelm him. She had picked out the bed and the wardrobe, designing every corner of the room, and by the time she was done, she was very pleased with herself. Richard had actually loved the room, and she was grateful for that. Isabella picked a classy jumpsuit that caressed her curves, one that reminded her of the jumpsuit she wore the first day she saw Rick. Tears pricked at her eyes as she thought of her husband yet again. She could have acted all strong, but she truly missed him. She was angry at whatever boss that had her husband at work for Christmas. Rick had traveled to Milan for some business-related issues, and he would not be back till the new year. She missed him badly. She paired the lilac jumpsuit with a pair of black stilettos, did very minimal makeup, bounced her already curly hair, and she was off to go. A few months after their wedding, Isabella had quit traveling to various places around the world and began being an agent for only local modeling. "I am ready," she said, and came out of her room. She opened the door with the intention of going to see Mirabelle, but instead, Rick was standing there in his full flesh. "Bella." He was looking at her with searching eyes. It was then that she realized that she had not even reached out to hug him. She was still in shock. "Oh my God, Rick, you're back," she said, coming out of her daze and bringing out her hands to hug him tightly. "Merry Christmas, baby," she said into his chest, snuggling deeper into the hug. She had missed that. She had missed the feeling of his arms around her skin, how he seemed to wrap so tight, letting her know that he would never let her go. "I love you so much, Bella," he said, his voice deep with emotion, bringing her mind back to the wedding. It had been on a Saturday, approximately 1 month after Christmas. It was not as big as Rick's father would have it, given that the wedding planner had only 1 week to plan it and all. Nevertheless, it was beautiful, and it was one that she loved. She had her wedding in a church. She would have loved a garden wedding, or even a beach wedding, something outdoors. But the weather was certainly not right, and she could not wait till spring. Her mother had invited one of her friends to join them. The clergyman was very jolly, and always had a smile on his face, so much so that she wondered what was on his mind. The morning before the wedding, she had cold feet. Mirabelle had not been able to walk then, and she suddenly felt guilty. It was her sister that later calmed her down. She convinced her that her happiness was of utmost priority, that it was not a must for her to stand at the wedding. It took a while, but Isabella agreed. She cleaned her tears and entered into the limo that drove them to the church. Her father had walked her down the aisle, as she wore a gown that was way too heavy, but she absolutely loved it. It was an off-shouldered, Cinderella-style ball gown that had intricate patterns embedded into it. At first sight, she had fallen in love with it and put in her mind that she would wear it on her wedding day. Her father had walked her and then handed her over to Rick. She felt an absolute joy bubble in her chest. She knew that he did not really like the makeover she gave him, but he dressed like that to their wedding, wearing the exact same suit, smiling so widely that she felt his lips would tear. It gladdened her heart to know that he was happy to get married to her. As the jolly-looking clergyman said the vows, they both repeated them, and by the time they were both done, tears had stained their eyes. The reception was short and nice, with many of their acquaintances attending, including Jason and his wife, Rhea, alongside their son Theo. Isabella had learned that Richard did not like Jason, not at all. It was kind of awkward since Jason was her best friend, but then again, he took away his first love. Isabella had expected him to be all over his ex, but he just introduced her and he did not spend much time talking to her. He did not call her by a nickname. She was glad. They went for their honeymoon in the Philippines. It was a very nice experience for the both of them, meeting new people and learning their culture, visiting their beaches, their museums and all of that. "Bella, where has your mind gone?" she heard Rick ask, and she just shrugged. "I was thinking of our wedding," she said, and Rick smiled. "It is almost a year ago, isn't it?" he said wistfully, with a smile on his face. "Yes, and do not forget our anniversary. It isn't hard, the 25th of January. She reminded, and he just laughed. "You did not even ask why I was home early." "Oh, I was gazing at your handsome face, so I forgot, and I am also so glad to see you." "Well, I am here to take you out. I see you are ready," he said, like it was normal for him to fly from Milan, just to take her out for breakfast. "Were you called out from work?" she asked. Yes, my love. I could not stand being away from you for so long, and so I finished my work and came back to see you and our babies," he said, and she smiled. "Speaking of, where is Mirabelle?" she asked. After her accident, Mirabelle had stayed with them until she was well. When she heard about Isabella's condition, she had offered to be a surrogate for her. Both Isabella and Richard had outrightly disagreed. They already had plans for adoption. But she had begged for the opportunity. She wanted a bit of experience. She had no idea where she was going in life, and she had even quit medical school for the moment. Her mother had said the accident loosed a few knots in her head, but her father had supported her. 6 months after her accident in June, they went to a hospital and the procedure was done. After 3 trials, 1 pregnancy actually stayed, and so by July she was pregnant, with twins. She was just 5 months gone, but Isabella could tell that Mirabelle would be very big, huge when she was ready to pop. "Here I am," she said, basically gliding into the room, her pregnant belly appearing before her. "We are up for breakfast, so please take care of our babies for us," Richard said, and Mirabelle laughed. "Come on, you act as if you are asking me to babysit. Your babies are basically inside my womb. They will be fine," Mirabelle said, and Isabella just rubbed her husband's hand. He wasn't really put up with someone carrying their child, but he was doing it all for her. The fact that it was her sister carrying the child helped to put his mind at ease. "We should get going," she said to Rick, and he agreed. He bent down to kiss Mirabelle's engorged belly and whispered into her stomach. Watching her husband do that made her smile. "So what are we celebrating?" she asked as he started the engine of the car. "Well, our 11th month anniversary, of course, and 1 year of knowing each other," he said, and she smiled. It had been faster than she would have ever expected, but then again, maybe it was because they had both loved before, maybe it was the season of love, maybe it was because they were meant to be. Looking at everything, at their love and how it had grown, at their children that were on their way, at how easily they fell into companionship, she figured that they had their second chances after all. They were able to fall in love again. The end. A lost woman, a confused man, and a season of joy. Mirabelle is as lost as possible, and she is trying her best to find herself. An accident makes her have a different outlook on life, and she is determined to change. Jaden is new to the neighborhood, and a pregnant woman takes his notice. She is beautiful and witty. She seems to have drawn him in, yet he knows that he cannot engage. He knows that she is out of bounds. Throw in Jaden's racist mother and a pregnant Mirabelle into the mix, and things turn out to be so much more complicated. Follow Jaden and Mirabelle in their story of forbidden love, of Christmas, and of happy endings. A bit of a stalker. Mirabelle felt heavy, bloated like a balloon, like a penguin. Being pregnant was not easy, and having twins was only twice as hard. She was tired, cranky, hungry, and even bored. She had basically just shooed her sister out of the house, instructing her to get some fresh air, and she was already regretting her choice. If she knew that she would feel so bad, she would have just managed to swallow her sister's moaning and self-complaining about how she was missing her husband, who was not around for Christmas. But she was feeling annoyingly hormonal and basically made her go outside. All the Christmas decorations in the house seemed like they were mocking her. From the big Christmas tree and the lights on top, down to the shiny star that was sitting on top. More often than not, she was jealous of the love that her sister, Isabella, and her husband Richard had. She did not know their full love story, but she was so happy that her sister found someone that loved her in spite of her not being unable to conceive. She had cried the day her sister told her about it. She felt so useless, not knowing how Isabella had been feeling for a while. It was then that she decided to help them to carry their babies. It was one of the most wonderful decisions she had made. It had given her a direction in life, something to live for. Carrying a child that would later tell her aunt, helping to complete a family, made her feel like a sort of superstar, and after months of feeling confused, lost, feeling as though she was floating, that was all she needed. She stood up gently from the extremely comfortable sofa in Isabella's and Richard's home. The boredom was beginning to get to her, to make her think of things that she had long removed her mind from the dark part of her life that she never wanted to return to. She badly needed to get out of the house. She went into her simply decorated room that was as clinically arranged as possible. She picked up a brown and stylish coat that her sister had gifted her. On her own, Mirabelle would have not been able to pick up the dress. She had always had a terrible dress sense. Her sister, Isabella would always jokingly say that her and Richard should have been siblings since they sometimes behave alike. It was actually true. They both loved to stick their noses inside a book. They both had a terrible dress sense. They both were not fond of people and crowds in particular. She then put on a pair of gloves and wrapped a red shawl around her neck, making sure to guard herself from the inevitable cold that was outside the comfort of the house. She waddled as fast as she could outside the building, which was not fast at all, more like a snail's pace. The cold air hit her before she even saw the vision of snow, making her tighten her coat. She was cold and basically shivering, but she had no intentions of returning back into the flat. The entire area was screaming Christmas from the sounds of carols being played to the festive wear everyone was wearing. Mirabelle was not surprised, besides it was a week to Christmas. As she walked on to her destination, she had an odd feeling that someone was looking at her, but she shrugged it off. She barely knew anyone around the environment. No one would be looking at her. She continued walking until she got to the library. "Good afternoon, Mirabelle," the receptionist said, and Mirabelle gave her a smile. She was truly happy, besides she was in her element. "Good afternoon, Greta." She greeted the middle-aged redhead that had but freckles splattered over her face. Mirabelle had always been jealous of Greta's beautiful emerald green eyes, which were a far cry from her own light brown eyes. "How are you and the babies today, Mirabelle?" Greta asked. Greta had always been interested in her health and that of the babies since day one. It could be that it was because the library was the only place that she frequented. "They are pretty good. How are your kids, Greta?" she asked the lady. She has been frequenting the library, that they already had a cordial relationship with each other. She already knew that Greta had 2 kids, a boy and a girl, that she had seen only in pictures, but they looked so beautiful. "They are as naughty as usual," Greta said, and Mirabelle let out a loud laugh. They exchanged some pleasantries before she walked into the library. There was something about the smell of books that gave her peace, something about the sounds of pages flipping that gave her joy, something about words that came to life that made her happy. Mirabelle could not explain it, not really, but the library was her place. It was where she did her thing. It was because she loved to read so much that she decided on medicine. It was that and the fact that both her parents were professionals. It seemed to her that people who read medicine read so much and she reads so much. At that time it had seemed so natural. The accident that had changed her life, the one that had made her rethink her life, made realize that she was not even sure medicine was for her. She smiled as she looked at the brown shelves full of books of different types. They looked so full, so beautiful, for some reason that made her smile. Ever since she got pregnant, she had a love for romance. She usually read thrillers and mostly non-fiction books, but somehow the pregnancy changed her. She went to the shelf and picked up the book that she had been reading for more than 1 week, Mother of One. It was based in a small village in Nigeria. At first she had shied away from it. She felt that she would not understand it. But something had made her read it, and she did not regret it. It was about the mother of a deaf and autistic child in Nigeria. As she read about the things the mother had faced throughout the entire process, she began to cry. It was then that she began to see how privileged she was. The children were not hers, but she knew that they would never be hungry. But children all over the world were sad, hungry, dying every day. She had finished reading the book, but she could not help but pick it up again. It seemed to tell her. She ran her fingers up and down the book, feeling the smoothness of it as she went back to her seat. She felt eyes on her again, for the second time that day on her seat. She looked around, examining the people around her. They were 2 teenagers, who seemed to be doing an assignment together, an old woman that was nose deep into a book, None of them seemed to have any interest in her. She sighed and then put her mind back to her book. Jaden felt like every bit of a stalker. He had been staring at the caramel-skinned woman for the past hour as she read the book. Actually, he had been watching the woman for 3 weeks. He had first seen her there in the library as she walked in. He had been enthralled. She had the skin of caramel. Her skin shone as though some sort of oil had been rubbed on it, giving him the weird desire to stick out his tongue and taste it. Her thick brown hair was full atop her head. The fact that it was natural attracted him to her the more. Her body was full, like that of a goddess. Her face was oval-shaped, with thick lashes covering her honey-colored eyes. Her pink puckered lips seemed to beckon on him. She had the most beautiful expression on her face when she read. Her eyebrows furrowed and her lips pursed. Whenever he watched her, all he wanted was to kiss the worry of her lips. She was perfect. The only problem was that she was pregnant. It drove him crazy. He had no idea whether or not she was married, or if there was a baby daddy in the picture, but it unnerved him. Each time he saw her, he would look for a sign for another man, or any sign that she was with someone, but he had no clue. He had stalked her well enough to know that she lived with another woman and a man. Her relationship with them, he had no idea. He liked her and would have simply gone to talk to her if it was that easy, but he did not want drama of any sort. Any attention drawn to him. No matter how much he liked her, he did not want any excess baggage. He was still staring at her when his phone rang, bringing the attention of several people reading to him. He quickly stood up and went outside to answer his call. "What is it, Irene?" he asked his annoying little sister, who was also his personal assistant. "Are you not done with whatever you are doing in New York? You have a shitload of work waiting here. I have been trying to postpone the meeting you have with Mr. Rain, but he doesn't seem to buy any of my excuses anymore. You need to come home," she ranted, not even waiting for his output on anything in her slightly chirpy voice. "You should take a break, Irene. It is a week before Christmas. Enjoy and stop stressing yourself about work," Jaden replied, not even considering anything she said, knowing fully well that it would annoy her. "Did you not hear anything I said?" she shrieked loudly, making Jaden extend his phone from his ear, chuckling a bit at her. "You are so easy to rile up," he joked. He could not see his little sister, but he could tell that she was rolling her eyes. "Just come home, Jaden," she said slowly. She sounded so serious that he let out a breath. "I will when I am ready," Jaden said. "Do not just stay too much. A lot of people are depending on you," Irene said. His sister was not usually one for guilt-tripping, but it sounded like that it was she was doing that. "It is okay, Irene. I will come back home when I am ready," he said to his sister before disconnecting the call. Jaden knew that he had responsibilities waiting for him at home. But after the death of his father and his mentor, he felt like he needed time away from the corporate world, from his family, from everything in particular. It had been 1 month since he decided to leave Washington, 1 year since the death of his father. He barely had time to grieve, as immediately his father died, he was thrown into work. Jaden loved his father to death, but he would admit that he was not the best businessman. He was barely into the company before his father's death, and he did not know how it all ran. He was pushed into a whole load of incomplete business deals, unaccounted funds, and deep in debt. It was not something he would wish for anyone to inherit. He had spent a whole year of his life being a workaholic, trying to fix his father's company, trying to help it not to run to the ground. He spent 1 year listening to his mother's degrading remarks of his father and of him. He spent a whole year not living, just existing. The only thing that kept him sane was the fact that Irene was on his side. His mother, as usual, was all about keeping their reputation pure and about no one finding out that they were going bankrupt. It took him 1 year of sleepless nights, of basically no human relationships apart from business, but he finally did it. Throughout the entire process, he was trying to convince himself that he was doing it for his father, but a year later, he realized that it was not so. The company was stable enough, and so he took 1 month off from work to just be free from it all. To be able to walk without the pressure of running a multi-million company on his shoulders. He had come to New York with the intention of a holiday, and then he had met her, and from then he had been glued. She had been wearing a thick coat the first time he laid his eyes on her, but that did not cover the engorged pregnant belly. Jaden did not have a pregnant woman fetish or anything related to that, but her looks had turned him on. How she glowed even though it was winter, how she resembled some sort of a goddess all of that just called him to her. It took a while for Jaden to realize that he was standing in front of a library and daydreaming about a lady that he could not even have. He heaved out a sigh as he stared at the doors of the library. There was no point to him doing all of that, just staring at her from afar. The thought of the nameless caramel beauty filled his mind as he walked down the curb to his apartment.